Hey guys, Andy here from Mediocre Hobbies, coming at you with another vehicle tutorial, or kind of just a fun video for me really. About a year ago, I bolstered the ranks of my huge Krieg army with quite a large number of resin tanks from Forgeworld, some super heavies and some kind of Lehman Russ variants and the like. I constructed them pretty much immediately. As soon as I got my hands on them, I constructed them. And then they have sat on their shelf unsprayed, unpainted and unloved since then. So over the course of the next couple of weeks, I really do want to get through that backlog of extra Krieg tanks so that maybe you guys can see some of these more interesting vehicles being fielded and played with in the upcoming Battle Report series. So if that's something you would like to see, please let me know in the comments below. So I'm going to start today with one of the easier ones, which is the Imperial Guard Thunderer, which is kind of like a heavy siege tank. It's a Lehman Russ chassis with no turret, with a cannon coming out of the front. It's quite an interesting thing. It reminds me of a World War II Stug, a German tank destroyer. If anyone is aware of what that is, that's what it reminds me of, and that's why I like it so much. So yeah, that's what I'm going to tackle here today, adding a bunch of transfers, some cool weathering, and getting it ship shape for my Krieg army. Before I get into the video, I just want a huge thank you to all of my active patrons. You guys are growing in numbers week to week, so huge thank you for all of you guys, especially all you new members. I really do mean a lot to me. If you are curious and want to get involved with the Patreon yourself, there is links to it below. You get access to a private Discord server and an extra video every single week, so 52 extra videos a year just for you guys. So I think that's a pretty good reward. Okay, without further ado, let's get painting a tank. And for anyone that is curious, this is a Thunderer siege tank. It is a very peculiar chassis Lehman Russ variant. I started by spraying the entire thing Chaos Black, and then I go through the normal stages that I do personally for doing my Krieg tanks. And it starts with a light airbrush of a light grey or dark grey. And this is just to get the panels to a nice point where I can hit it with the blue. I go for one of those kind of standard Krieg color schemes, the kind of navy blue scheme. Yeah, every single Krieg I've done so far has been in that scheme, and I really love it. And I will continue to do that until I reach my goal with Krieg, which is, I don't actually know what my goal for my Krieg is yet. Somewhere in the region of 10 to 20,000 points, but it'll take a couple of years. After I've done that light grey scheme over the hull, it's just add a bit of shadowing and stuff like that. Get the contrast going. I do go in with the Fang. Now the Fang actually goes on in two coats. I do a coat like this first, which once again, I'm following the kind of the smoother panels of it. I am trying to give a little bit of contrast and leave a little bit of shadow behind with the airbrush. And then after that, I'm going to hit the whole model with some sepia. So once again, stain that armor panel. I give it a really nice kind of weathered tone in recesses. The light here went a little bit red. I don't know why it did that. Maybe it was the camera just picking up the light weird, but it did go to a completely different tone. But here's me putting a light coat of, like I said, that Seraphim Sepia over the hull of the tank. Just to add that light bit of staining. And this is something that I've been doing with every single Krieg tank I've done so far. Here's a really fun stage. So I'm on the dozer blade. I try and give as many tanks as possible in my Krieg army dozer blades because I really like adding chevrons into the scheme. I think it really gives it a nice pop of color. So I start with a nice coat of matte black, and I do that all across the front of the shield. I make sure it's nice and smooth. Then I go in with this Green Stuff World papered tape, lining tape, whatever you call it, masking tape. There we go. And I put it basically the entire way across the shield, all nice and evenly spaced. And then I take every second one off so that I know that they are perfectly spaced between each other to give me a perfect chevron scheme. I then hit it with a pure white. For me here, I'm actually using inks. So this is a pure white ink. With the airbrush, it dries really fast. So you can do 2-3 coats if you want to, like literally going back and forth until you get a white coat you like. I don't like it to be too solid. And then I go in with some Indian ink yellow. I love this tone. I think it's absolutely beautiful and perfect for that chevron. And after I do 1 or 2 coats of that and I'm happy with it, I get to do the most satisfying thing I have found in miniature painting, and that is this. I haven't cut this short at all. I'm leaving every single tape pull in this video because it is so satisfying to watch. You get those perfect chevrons absolutely every single time. And like I said, the Krieg scheme, Krieg in general, are considered to be quite a dark, trench fighting, dark blues or dark browns and blacks and grays. So having that extra piece on tanks that gives you a pop of color, I think it really does work a treat. Now, once that shade is dry that I did before, I go in with my light blue color again, which is the Fang again. And this time I'm being much more careful. I've tightened the flow on my airbrush, and I'm just going in to add those highlights. Once again, it's only on the flat panels, kind of in the center of them. I'm leaving all those shaded and shadowed areas nice and dark. This is quite a light stage, and it just adds the kind of final blue, if you will, to the tank. Thing about Krieg, like I said, is they're usually dark and grungy, so there will be quite a lot of weathering added to this tank in a moment, which kind of works a treat. As for now, though, it's time to move on to a dark silver. I had lead belcher here, and it was time to apply just all the metallic parts. I started, optimistically with a smaller brush on the tracks, and then quickly grabbed a medium flat dry brush and decided to do the tracks in about 10% of the time. And then, of course, tidying up the dozer blade is also very satisfying, because you're tidying up those edges and just leaving that pure chevron scheme in the middle. And it's kind of weird. The reason I'm doing this tank is for no other reason other than myself. And I think that's also really important for us as hobbyists. Like, we always put these kind of, okay, I need to do this because of this reason, or I need to do that because of that reason. Whereas I think every now and again, I think it's super important to just grab something random, break your cycle, find something that you bought and you love months ago, years ago, it doesn't matter. Dig it out of your pile of opportunity. I still call it a pile of shame. And then throw some paint on it. Get it built and painted. Spend a couple of days on that. You'll have something that you know you're going to love, finished and complete. You're going to have a really nice sense of accomplishment at the end of it. Then you can go back to that army you need to paint for a tournament or a campaign, or your latest batch of miniatures that you told yourself you'd buy, and make sure you finish before you bought anything else, and now something else that you want is nearly out, so you're trying to rush through that. Yeah, we've all been there. Grab something fun, something that inspires you, and just get to work. One of my favorite things of all time is transfers. Anyone who doesn't like transfers, you're a lunatic. Learn to put on transfers correctly, and I promise you they will change your life. I like to put on as many transfers as possible on my tanks. Unfortunately for the numbers ones on these ones, I used a really old Krieg transfer sheet, and the entire sheet is the transfer, if that makes sense. So when I cut out the 215, I thought the 5 would be the separate They're not. So unfortunately I left a little square around it, which is a little annoying. Well, we won't worry about that. While I'm dry brushing silver over the hull to catch all those sharp edges and add a tiny touch of weathering, I just hit the transfer a little bit extra, and it weathered it down really nicely. Added some nice symbols at dozer blade. 215 is the designation of this tank, plus some prayer litanies across the other side, which I pulled off of Night Titan transfer sheet. I keep all sorts of transfer sheets, and I go through all of them when I'm doing projects, because people put a lot of generic transfers on sheets that you can use in a bunch of different armies. So here is the tank all clean and ready for war, but of course I'm going to weather it down. Noc Furio is the name I've given this tank, as it was one of the cool names that was on the transfer sheet. And the last stage that I like to do is to get some weathering powder, weathering pigment, and just lightly apply it to the tank. Now I consider it to be a little bit light. I have gone a bit too heavy on tanks before, and this is a personal preference. You can stop before this stage if you don't like weathering powders. I love weathering powders. I love how it makes it look. I think it looks way more like a battle tank when it's all weathered and dirty and dusty, like every tank you see in a movie ever. So I don't need a million comments saying, oh, I think you put too much weathering powder on. That's fine. When you do your one, you put less weathering powder on. For me, I love it. I will inevitably also get questions as to how I attach the weathering powder and do I do anything afterwards. I don't move my miniatures around a lot. I play a lot in my studio here, so I don't need to pack them up. But when I do, just a quick coat of a matte spray varnish will seal it in place. It does give it a slightly different texture at the end, which I don't really like. I prefer leaving it looking kind of dusty. But that's the price of wanting it to stick on and not stain your hands or stain your table or anything like that. Staining your table is one of those things you actually have to consider these days when we use lots of neoprene mats. You don't want to get this dark powder on a bright table that will literally leave a stain that you can never get out again. So a spray of a light matte varnish over the entire thing will hold it in place and do a perfect job. So here is my finished Thunderer Siege tank. Absolutely love it. I showed you guys a bunch of the tanks to start. Let me know which one you'd like to see next. Here's a couple of still images of number 215, Furious Noc, ready for the tabletop and ready for war. Absolutely love this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed coming along on this journey with me. And there we have it. One Lehman Russ Thunderer is painted up and ready for the tabletop. I showed you already in this video kind of a quick scan past of all the different tanks that I have to paint up. So please let me know in the comments which one of them you want me to do next. I know which one I would like to see next, but I'll leave it in the hands of you guys. You know what you're doing. And like I said, I will hopefully get through all of them in the next couple of weeks, at least kind of 2 or 3 months. They should all be finished off. I just have to find gaps in my schedule where I can throw them in, because I think they make quite interesting and fun videos. Okay, thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you give it a like. Ask me any questions you want in the comments below. I will get back to each and every one of you guys. And if you're not subscribed, like about 60% of the people who watch my videos, please take 2 seconds today and hit that subscribe button. It costs you nothing. It means everything to me. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys in the next video.